What's up, world, and welcome to the All Real Show. This is where we discuss issues pertaining to the socioeconomic system and how they relate to everything. Why and how are the fundamental questions. Answer them enough, you get to the truth. I'm your host, Alex. My guest today has been an agent for change her entire life. As a youth, she organized her Girl Scouts troop to make environmental changes in her neighborhood, leading to the entire city getting involved in the cleanup. As a young woman, she started a women's empowerment group. That program is now in most colleges in the U.S. called the Women's Empowerment Course. As an adult, she's been a life coach in the law of attraction and opened her own business school called the Ananda Academy, where she trained entrepreneurs on how to manifest a business. She's lived in a variety of intentional communities all over the nation and has studied the work of Jacques Fresco and the Venus Project. She's worked with the Venus Project as well. She studies nonviolent communication and sociocracy. Please welcome Ananda Elyce Reeves to the show.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me on the show today. I do appreciate being here. After listening to my background, it kind of makes me reflect on how much I've actually really done in this lifetime. So thanks so much for the nice introduction.
Oh, you're welcome, Ananda. Thank you very much for being here. I am really excited for the reason you just stated. I felt the same when I read it and wrote that, and you have accomplished a lot in your life, and all positive, or, we all have ups and downs, but very positive impacts that you've done. And I think that just speaks to the type of person you are. And when we spoke before, you struck me as someone with a lot of positive energy, very full of hope, imagination, passion, desire. And that's clearly shown through in your life's work and endeavors. And your book, which we're going to discuss now, it's a manifestation of that. I read it. I loved it for numerous reasons. It's very thought out and well written. So why don't we start there and you tell me about it, your book, and what inspired you to write it?
Okay, well, thank you. The name of the book is How the People Elected New Systems for President. And I know that's a really long title, but it actually says everything that I wanted to say in the title. And the first word is how. That is so key, because what this book is, it's an imaginary book. It's designed to spike people's imagination and to carry them out of the rut we're in right now, out of the fear and the scarcity and the separation. And if people could just start imagining a new future, it manifests. And so I've been around a lot. I've seen so many wonderful movies and videos. I remember seeing the movie Thrive, and I remember so many of Jacques Fresco's videos and the whole zeitgeist movement. And I just get so thrilled when I see that kind of media out there. But the thing I always come away with is people aren't talking about how they do it. How are we going to transition from this time that we're in right now, where people are completely locked down in their rooms and they think the only option going on in the world is Trump? How do we transform that into a sustainable society that thrives and is a happy society? How do we get from here to there? And so the book is written as an imaginary story. One of my heroes in life right now is a living person named Steve Saylor. And probably a lot of people haven't heard about him, but I know you've had him on your show before, Alex.
Yep.
And he's a simple farmer guy. He's a hemp farmer in Colorado.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
He puts together all of the messages from the great messengers of these times and some of the great futurists. And he's running for president of the United States in 2020. And people don't know that, but he's a simple guy. He's not dynamic. He's not full of money. In fact, his party is the money-free party.
Right.
Well, I came across this guy and I thought, wow, what would that be like if this out of nowhere person just became president? What if we got all of our act together and we united as a human race and brought him out of obscurity, and he won the election, and we started living our planet according to new systems for a president instead of a president?
Right.
It's funny, but the whole thing started because I was home in quarantine, and I just got bored and decided to write a creative writing exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my fingers on that keyboard, and I don't know who was writing this stuff, but man,
It just flowed, huh?
that whole book just blew right out of my fingertips. And it's a good thing I can type as fast as I can think, because I started imagining it, and one sentence turned into another, and then another, and pretty soon it's an 8-chapter ebook. And so when I got done with it, I wanted to make it into an audiobook. So I had a few neighbors, and the neighbors that I had over were pretty typical American people.
Mm-hmm.
They're home too now, locked in, thinking Trump's their only option and the media is the only choice.
Right.
And I read them this simple little imaginary story. And I have to honestly tell you, the impact this had on these people's lives was absolutely phenomenal. I'm getting a little choked up even thinking about it, because
I understand.
they just woke up to, wow, you know what? There's more to the world than what's being spoon-fed to us,
Exactly.
forced down our throats every day.
Exactly.
And it was an amazing process.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what the book, I mean, that's really what I loved about it. I mean, it is amazing to me, honestly, how many people are so closed in and closed off with their thoughts, whether they realize it or not. And, you know, a lot of people like me and you and others are aware of all these alternatives, and we look into it and stuff. But, you know, to like talk to somebody in brief, it's hard to kind of, you know, what's the most impactful thing to say, in what order, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's what I loved about the book, because you took the time to do that, to kind of organize it, obviously, and write it out. And that's, I mean, even being the type of person I am and understanding all the alternatives, when I read it, it was enlightening and inspiring, and it did stir my imagination. And it's a really beautiful book, honestly. And I think anybody who would read it, you would have no choice, no option but to think differently at the very least, you know?
Yeah, and when I actually saw it happen with a few just common neighbors, I decided I wanted to create more reading circles and read it all the time. And that took my imagination to another whole level. I'd like to be like you when I grow up, Alex, and have a radio show. Just read my stories over and over again, and then have some call-in dialogues. And right now I'm working with a few people that are reading the book with me, because they came out of it thinking, well, what can we do? And that's the point of creating your imagination about thinking of an alternative futures. Well, what can we do to get there? And so there's just 3 of us in this group. It's a tiny little group, but we're going to start it by operating a center. We're going to create a center.
Mm-hmm.
And right now with the whole COVID thing, of course, it can't be packed full of an audience, but you can have a few people in at a time down at the center. It's right downtown Sebring, Florida. And we're in the process of negotiating with a property owner to convince him he should just give us this building, because nobody's using it. And
Right.
I'm a big manifester, and so I don't have no doubt that we can manifest a center. But I visualize that people will drop in and they'll get to hear the story reading live by the author, and we'll have Steve Saylor videos running regularly, and we'll have, you know, the alternative books there, Jock Fresco's book, The Best That Money Can't Buy, and you know, just a F Day by Colin Turner. There's some resources I used in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's my hero, Michael Tellinger, who wrote the Ubuntu Contribution System stuff. And I can just see a center where people can come and buy these books, these stories, and see videos. And And so the three of us just want to create a very duplicatable process. So this is where it starts. And the next town over can come back and say, well, how did you do that? How did you get your town on the same page and start, looking at future resources and things? And we're going to say, well, we started with Ananda's book, and then we went to a center, and you can do that too. And so we visualize it just going viral, every little town or big town having its own little center, and that's where we're starting it. We're trying to do things that are duplicatable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a very cool idea. I envision it almost like an information center, right? Like if you go to somewhere, a park or whatever, you have the visitor center is what I'm trying to say. Kind of like that.
Yeah. Like a visitor center.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's very cool. And I know you are aware. I mean, I'm aware of a good amount. You're aware of even more. People that are doing stuff like this and putting stuff into action, writing books, making videos, like Colin, like Steve, and so many others, of course, the Venus Project, what it's built up to be, and the Zeitgeist movement, how many people it's impacted. And I think that's important too, to more and more unify these things, because like anything, you're going to, people are different. You're going to have different forms of ideas and different, ideas of how to get there to the end goal and that stuff like that. But ultimately, all of our end goals are the same. And I do think that's very important to start unifying these things in some way, shape, or form, because I see that a lot also, where people voice like, okay, what can I do? Or, everybody's talking about this. I agree, but nothing's happening, and I feel it. I feel that frustration too, but I think that's a big step, is to get more and more togetherness in the cause.
Yeah, I so agree on that, and I've become keenly aware of that just in the last couple of weeks, because we started a Facebook group, another what if situation. We started a Facebook group on what would it be like to have an RBE radio station, resource-based economy.
Right.
And so one of the guys put together a Facebook group, and it's a private group. Everybody in the world doesn't come in, but people that are specifically interested in media of some sort, uniting all of the futurists. Mm-hmm. And the people that come on there, they've been around for a long time, 10, right. 20, 30 years they've been around following this movement. And, they're saying all the same thing. They're saying we need to unite. Right. Mm-hmm. Because, there's some powerful people coming through with some powerful visions. Like Michael Tellinger's one small town vision is amazing, but you can't get them to agree with the Venus Project, and you can't get the Venus Project to agree with the Zeitgeist movement. And it's like, here we are as a human race having all of this, these messages, if you will, coming through us. Mine came through this simple little story. And, people are getting the messages. They're writing them down. They're designing them. There's future cities already designed by futurists like Buckminster Fuller and Jacques Fresco. And I just spoke to a man yesterday named Tyler. He's got a whole city created. And so the vision, the clarity are coming through humanity. In all kinds of shapes and forms and sizes. And the trick is, when we manifest together, when we're on the same page and we're all manifesting together, that's when the 100th monkey is going to show up.
I've never heard that expression, but I like the 100th monkey, yes.
Yeah, well, the 100th monkey is a kind of an old story. It's about an island of monkeys that evolved. They started an evolution, and they used to eat yams, and they were all sandy. Mm-hmm. And just by the point of maturing and evolution, one of the monkeys decided to go down to the water and wash off his yam. Well, pretty soon, the babies that were born, the new ones that haven't been trained by the older ones, started just automatically washing their yams And then there were islands across the sea that had no contact with those monkeys, and they suddenly started to wash their yams. And so the 100th monkey syndrome is that we're going to get to a critical mass at some point where the 100th one comes in, and that's the turning point.
I see.
And so I see that as, we're all separate here, coming up with the different movements. And I use a lot of the examples, all of them in the book. And it's kind of funny because I asked each of the authors if I could use their stuff, and they were fine with that, but they didn't like it that I was talking about the other guy.
Really?
So I'm going, okay, well, too bad, because I'm very eclectic. I come from all of them. I spent some time with Michael Tellinger. I spent some time with Roxanne Meadows from the Venus Project.
Mm-hmm.
I've been around for a long time with this movement, and I love them all.
Right.
But it just seems like someone said to me the other day that there's too many chiefs. They have an ownership in their design that's coming through them, and it's going to be interesting to teach them to share. So I have a theory about that. That as I mentioned, there's a bunch of people interested in starting an RBE radio show, and they're talking about having these different speakers on, very much like what you do, and there's plenty of room for everybody to put out more and more media, just like there's many channels out there,
Yeah.
There's enough for everybody. And so anyway, I was thinking that the answer is to put all of these groups on the radio, on the media,
Mm-hmm.
and then let the people come out and say, we want to follow your design. We like your design, rather than the people that's creating them coming back with trying to promote their
Right.
work. You give it to the public, you give it to the people, and let the people stand up and say, I choose to work with these. And just like in the case of Steve Saylor, wonderful guy. You put Steve Saylor's information and tapes out there, and the people come around and they say, I want to follow this guy. I want him to be our president. And you get 1 million or 2 or 3 or 10 million people out there that say that. Well, people that are organizing the process are going to show up. Just like if 10 million people just showed up and said, we want the Venus Project to be part of our future, or we want Zeitgeist to be part of our future. Let the people push it.
Right.
Instead of the designers of the programs.
Well, I actually think that's a very interesting idea you just said, to have even some or all of these, so-called heads of these different movements at one time, just talking together. It would be very interesting to see how that played out. I actually want to go into this too now. I was already intending to, but I do think it's honestly a very big issue, or something, to focus on and discuss, because humans' ego is so controlling, and it can be so destructive and inhibiting. And it's unfortunately something we all deal with, all of us, to some degree, some more than others. And I'm big-headed in a lot of ways. I've created a lot of stuff. I know when you put your heart and soul and passion and time and effort and energy into something, it's your baby, literally. You want to cherish it, nurture it, promote it, keep it safe, whatever that looks like. I mean, and that's a real thing. And anybody who has really, truly invested like that and created something, you would know what I'm saying, it's an ego thing, and it's really hard to get around. But I wanted to talk to you about that because, as you just mentioned, I know you've been around, you've had experience a lot more in depth, than most people with some of these different movements and organizations. And I've actually had people on here that's worked with the Venus Project and stuff, and they have talked about some of their experiences with them. So What was your experience and takeaway from being involved with them, and when did you first learn about them?
With the Venus Project, I was actually at, I'll probably talk about how I was led to that later on in the show, but the point was, I went on a tour of the Venus Project and fell in love with them. I heard about the Venus Project way back in the early 70s when I was at a communities conference in Virginia.
Wow, that's amazing.
Twin Oaks community in Virginia. You maybe even know about that. That's kind of your neck of the woods there. But
yeah. I was trying to think.
Anyway, they had a communities conference and they had the Venus Project there. Late 70s, maybe even mid 70s, long time ago.
Yeah.
And all of these years, I just kept bumping into it. And they went into obscurity for about 30 or 40 years. And during that time is when Jacques Fresco, the founder, designer, architect, visionary, futurist, when he designed just hundreds and hundreds of models for the future that work.
Right.
And he designed new transportation, new cities, new ways of thinking of free energy. He was a phenomenal man.
Yeah, he was.
So I went down to the Venus Project. I stepped on their land, and I went and I toured the buildings that you could actually step inside some future buildings, and they're made to be termite free and hurricane proof, and they get better with age, and the design on them is very futuristic looking, and they're beautiful. And I was traveling at the time, and I just stopped traveling. I moved in a town that's 30 minutes away from the Venus Project so that I could be here to be of service. And I said, I'm gonna study this to the hilt.
Right.
I'm gonna spend my time studying Jacques Fresco and the Venus Project. And so I started doing some archiving down there for them. And he didn't record things in the modern age. There wasn't any technology around. He just used cassette tapes. And he has over 800 cassette tapes that are still to this day untranslated. So I sat there and I did some very important archiving work to organize these tapes, because when they get everything of Jacques Fresco's out, they're going to organize it and make a movie. I felt very, very important down there, and I got to be on the land and walk on the land every day I had a chance. And then the world changed.
Yeah.
My car died, and Venus shut down to open people, and fires happened and that. So I wasn't able to go back there. But here's my take on the Venus Project.
Okay.
Roxanne is an amazing woman. She's one of my heroes in my life. She's a very simple woman. And she lives to protect Jacques Fresco.
Right. I could see that.
And she guards him, I think, almost, to the extreme.
Right.
And what she wants for the Venus Project. This is just me now, and I had firsthand experience at it. She wants the world to think and talk like Jacques Fresco did.
Right.
I just recently had a visit with her. I rented a car and actually went back because I had to get back on the land. And I just recently visited with her, and she doesn't like the idea that that there's a movement called resource-based economy, because that's a phrase that Jacques Fresco coined. And she'd like to keep that just for us, Jacques Fresco and the Venus Project. And she says, they've got, and the reason for that is that they're looking at people who want to fund them. And, they want to keep, that phrase right to the Venus Project.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that. Again, kind of like I was saying, but one thing, when you put something out to the world, again, I know from listening to other artists, musicians, things like that, producers, and myself, what you have to understand with that, once you put something out to the world, when you do it in your closed environment or, expose it to a handful of people or that kind of thing, but once you expose something to the world like that, at that point, like it or not, you lose control over it. You don't know what the world is going to take from that.
Exactly.
And how they're going to interpret it, and believe me, I understand like that term, especially terms and things that are identifiable. I can get that a little more in a sense of kind of wanting to keep that close to home, so to speak, and especially in this monetary system with, maybe making money and all that, you want to patent it or copyright. But the bottom line, like I said, I know the feeling, but that's the reality is once you create something and put it out to the world in any form, like this radio show or anything, I mean, you have no control over it after that as far as how people interpret it or how they mold it into their, vision kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that that's kind of the juncture that the Venus Project is at.
Right.
Because Roxanne wants to keep everything close to home.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I thought that she would be very proud of my book. And I'll ask you, you've
Sure.
read the book. I just want to ask you, just from the perspective of showing reverence and honor to Jacques Fresco in my book, how do you feel that came through?
It's amazing to me how things just go full circle. I don't, to say it quickly. I was already wanting to kind of touch on that, so it's pretty cool that you just did. But I was going to say it in a general sense, but we can talk specifically about Jacques and the Venus Project. But I was going to make a comment, or intended to make a comment at some point, that I think you did an excellent job of what you just asked, of giving props to people, explaining people, like in the preface. I think you did a good job. All the real people, essentially, you referenced. You didn't just say, this is this person, I referenced Jacques Fresco. He created the Venus Project. Next, no, you clearly thought that out. You wrote a nice little, whatever you call it, piece, shorter, of course, it's a preface, but, excuse me, on the individuals, including Jacques, that you used in reference. And, I think you did an excellent job of that, of giving homage and respect and credit to the people that you referenced, and you put them in a good light. I mean, it's a very honest book too. Of course, it's imaginary, so in a big sense. But no, I do, Ananda. I think you did a great job with that, and I wouldn't have any problem if I was one of those people you referenced the way that you did it. I would be grateful and thankful that you did. So,
well, that's great that you feel that, and thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
And I was going to say that's not the same as the response that I get from the Venus Project. In fact, Roxanne doesn't acknowledge my book, and she won't even read it.
What?
Yeah. I mean, this isn't the cut on her, but really I talked to her face to face a few weeks ago, and I was really excited about my book because, like I said,
right,
the format of the book is pretend. Let's pretend that Jacques Fresco's design is actually happening. How would we actually come here to living in a world designed by Jacques Fresco?
Right.
And so I just took it on the other side of what if it looked like that?
Exactly. And
I made it real because I attached it to a little town and a small family, and I made it seem like this could be real. I can really see the reality in this story. These people could be real, and this town could be real, and this future could be real. But anyway, I had a lot of fun writing the book. Like I said, it was completely inspired. My mind muscles were working, and my spirit was just shining with every chapter I read. And I got some coaching from a writer, and he said, just make sure it touches their soul. So I'm writing like crazy, and the stuff's coming through, and I'm having a blast with it. And I go back and I read it as if I were reading it for the first time.
Right.
And honestly, there were times when I actually had tears in my eyes, because I was reading it as though I wasn't attached to it. And it was a touching story.
It
and
is, yeah.
and I feel from the author that I paid great honor to a special job, and it's a little disconcerting that Roxanne won't even look at it or doesn't acknowledge it, and
That is, honestly, that's
it's just down the same line that she wants to keep everything close to home. She wants everything to be just as it was for Jacques Fresco. She mentioned to me that people aren't even allowed to talk. They're not allowed to teach the Venus Project until they've gone through their 2-year-long course. And after they get through the 2-year-long course, they have to have special permission to teach the Venus Project.
Yeah. Well, what you did, especially the end part you just said, that's exactly what the others have said. They worked, in close detail. Some of the people on the show that spoke about it, and, dealt with Roxanne personally. And I mean, I'll say the same thing I said then, just kind of as a disclaimer. I have no doubt. I don't know the woman. I don't know Roxanne, but I have no doubt she has a good heart and she's a good person and deep down has good intent. The same with most people who work with the Venus Project. I'm sure the majority, 99% or, they have good intent. They, but I am a realist and I just call it like I see it. And you can be those things and still not be other things or ways that you need to be to accomplish the goal you're basically trying to accomplish. And for me, that's why I think it is important to talk about like what we're talking about now and address it. Because if that's the way it is, well, that's the reality, right? That's the truth. I mean, there's no harm in speaking the truth. If somebody personal has a problem with it, that means they have a problem with their self, essentially. So that's something they need to think about or focus on. But I just want to say that I do think it's so important because one of the questions I ask myself and other people, what is your end goal, right? I mean, what are you really trying to do here? What are you trying to accomplish? And if you have a vision, if you have a goal that you're trying to reach, essentially, you have to do what's best to get there. So in other words, what I'm trying to say with this in particular is taking nothing away from the project as a whole or even the individuals in it. But if what you are putting out there on, your website and your post or whatever is saying, this is what we are trying to do, but then you are running it essentially or handling it like that, you have to understand that is absolutely no way you're going to get to that goal, because what all of us essentially are trying to do is change the world, right? I mean, when you do something of that magnitude, it's one thing if you want to change 5 or 10 friends, or a group of, well, yeah, you can be the hierarchy or whatever the case, but people don't respond to that stuff, and it has to be all inclusive. And that's kind of going back to what you were saying about, getting them together or merging them. I think that's huge, but I also see the dilemma with that and what we're talking now and how the egos get in the way.
Yeah, and that's a perfect bridge about what I was explaining earlier is that, you and me and other people that know of this knowledge, and remember that we're a very small slice of humanity that
right.
have this knowledge of a alternative future, if you will, like some of the organizations we talked about. But, if more people are out putting it out into the media and it gets out to the world, this is a perfect example. We've got the Venus Project that wants to control the way that it's offered and the way people teach it, and that kind of thing. But you've got the Venus Project that has a huge impact on people's lives and it gets them to start dreaming and thinking about a functional future.
Right.
Well, if there's enough media aimed at these, leaders in the futuristic industry, if you will call it that, And the people start jumping up and going, well, we want more of that. That's the deciding factor. It's not the deciding factor of the people that originated it or came up with the idea or developed it. It's really the people. So if you get 1 million people, 10 million people, whatever, a massive amount of people that comes in and say, we want to apply the Venus Project to an experimental city that we want to do, all of a sudden, everything that the Venus Project needs in the way of, unfortunately, right now, we still need money because we're still operating in the old money system, and that's another topic in itself. But, right now, actually, the Venus Project is suffering. They want to do more, but it takes money these days. And so same thing with Michael Tellinger's movement. He wants to develop one small town. Well, all of a sudden, there are millions of people said, we want to develop a small town, or just follow the example that came in my book. It's about, starting small and building communities and actually going viral with it, So if we expose it enough and enough people get informed about what's really the truth and what's really out there, the people will stand up and they'll raise their hands and they'll say, let's do this. And then the people that originated will have no choice but to get out of the way, so to speak, and let the people go ahead and have it. Exactly. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah.
So my mission right now is, I imagine it being kind of like a TED Talk in a way, a talk show, and having all of these different speakers there, maybe even all in the same room, a huge, gigantic conference where you've got all of these major finders, these leaders of potential future, all of them on a same panel discussion. Put them all in the same room, put them all on the same show, one right after another, and honor them with their knowledge. And let the people wake up to how many alternatives there are out there. How many people have been spending the last 20, 30, 40 years developing our future for us or with us. And let the people decide. I can't help but pay homage at this very moment to every single person that has come out lately. And I don't want to get off on this, but this is just one little mention that I want to say. Mm-hmm. And the mention is, I want to thank every single person who stepped out against all odds lately and protested.
Right.
Now, I don't even need to get into the issue. That is even not it.
Right.
Point is, people stepped out in the middle of a pandemic and they took a march. They took a walk. And there were thousands and thousands and thousands of those people. And I want to acknowledge everyone.
Amen. Yeah. I agree.
But the fact that at these times, people stepped up and stepped out and said something, regardless of whatever the issue was, I want to acknowledge them. And that's the same thing that I see happening with you give enough people enough information, alternative information about what our future could possibly be like that makes a more sane world, the people will step out.
I totally agree with you, Ananda. I really do. I've said it before on the show. I've been in talks about protests, non-protest, those things, what is going to be the most effective. I've made the comment before that I kind of said, imagine if every protest basically was for the same thing, That's what I'm talking about. Right. And the person at the time that was on the show said, well, protests, I don't think protest is the answer because it's essentially like begging. And on one hand, I agree with that. I know what you're saying. It's like, well, look, if we know this, we don't need, an acceptance or an okay. We just do it. But that's true, again, to some extent, to some level. But I know what you were just referencing. And ultimately, I agree, because it's exactly like the saying that, no army, no standing army of the world can stop an idea whose time has come.
And what if that army were about the Venus Project or the Ubuntu contributionism movement, or what if 1 million people started having ongoing courses on the different methodologies that are just sitting there waiting for the masses to discover.
Right.
And so it's really the people that's going to stand up and go, yeah, you know what? This makes sense. We're going to do that. And I personally, this brings it right back down to me and my little book.
Mm-hmm.
I personally feel that I'm in contribution to that.
Oh, of course.
Because I have a simple little book. It's a simple story. It actually lays out the plan of how people went about going to do the transition. And that little book can literally spark the fire of the planet, really. Because it talks about what would it look like if we changed things? What would it look like if we had different kind of leadership? That was our presidency was made up of councils of people with that were scientists and educators and environmentalists and all ages and all backgrounds and all so much diversity that our country was actually managing itself by having councils of people.
Yeah.
And rather than a commander in chief, what our world looked like then. And
well, what you just
the cool thing is that there's actually really an actual person running in that presidency. This isn't made up.
Right. Well, Ananda, I wholeheartedly agree. Again, I've said it on the show and I say it in my life that everybody can do something. And if you care enough or whatever the issue or passionate enough, you will do something, whatever that looks like. I mean, anything from, granted, we can argue about how effective things are or whatnot, but I'm just saying anything from advocating, posting on Facebook, to writing a book, to trying to do a podcast or a radio show or gathering groups or, something that I had a guest on, John Spritzler, very smart guy, very intelligent, wrote a couple books himself, all this good stuff. Something he did, and he made posts on Facebook, documented it and all that, was he created a sign. But like a little sign, on a page, and wrote out, we the people, this, that, whatever. He had it laminated, and he went and stood at the grocery store in his neighborhood. Well, maybe a couple different. And within 3 months, I think it was a little under 3 months, he had, and I don't remember, so excuse me, John, if you're listening, but it was thousands, literally. He documented it. Thousands of signatures. And then he asked most of the people, can I take a picture with you, holding this? And then he made a collage of that and he displayed that. You see, it's just so simple acts, and the impact that had, all those people that were then aware, all those people that were affected, all those people on Facebook and Vimeo or wherever he's put the videos and post that, hey, what's this, and so the spreading of knowledge, it is crucial, because you can't do it without it. It's like I say, if we were at the top, if we were the so-called leaders, even they, people think one person can just do whatever. Even they obviously answer and have to deal with multiple, people. But it's of course a lot easier to maybe make change of some way if you're up there. But being the people, you have to have a mass movement. You really do. And you have to have a direct goal. One specific goal, basically.
Yeah.
But I did just want to say that, and I did want to go back to what you were saying about your book and go into a little bit more explanation here or detail or whatever. Okay. The book is titled "How the People Elected New Systems for President," but explain that a little bit, because obviously for people who don't know maybe at all kind of what we're talking about, or haven't read the book, what does that mean, and explain what that is.
Well, so in the book, people started gathering by one family, putting together an action plan about how they were going to get this guy named Steve Saylor elected for president.
Mm-hmm.
It started with a small family that decided to stand up and do something and take action, very much like what you said John Spritzer did. And so they painted on their garage a big, gigantic action map. and people would come up and they'd sign up for an action that they were interested in partaking in, and then they formed a council, and the council was made up were small, so because they in sociocracy methods of consultation, everyone gets to have a voice. So they had all of these small groups, these small councils in their town, doing what needed to be done in whatever area they were interested in to bring about the change and to get Steve Saylor elected for presidency.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the idea of the councils went viral, and so pretty soon the whole nation was organized through councils. And then when Steve, in the book, in the imaginary story, when Steve Saylor becomes president, he actually appoints the main council, and it's called the Resource Management Team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made up of about 10 to 15 people. And in the book, this team is the new systems. They create new systems instead of just broken political systems like what we have. They start creating new systems like what Jacques Fresco designs as systems for creating a better future.
Yeah, could you go into that just a little bit, because I like that, and I think that's vital. Actually, the resource management team.
Oh, I wanted to go into that too. That is awesome.
It is.
I'm writing this book about this resource management team that the first thing the president does is he elects this team, and then he gets out of the way of the people, and he says for him to be president, it's more like being a choir director. He just, he directs the councils to get started, then he gets out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, back to the resource management team. So I am in the process here of this story where the first resource management team was appointed. And as the author of the book, I got to be the one to elect this team of resource management team people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just did some research, and I went out and I found about 10 people that I would want represented on my council that represents my country. Now, remember that the council doesn't rule anybody. They're not dominant. They investigate things using scientific methods, and they come to the table with facts, and they let the people decide what the results are going to be or how they're going to implement it. So this resource management team, I started looking around at people that I personally wanted on my resource management team. And I came up with people like Neil deGrasse,
Mm-hmm.
and Oprah Winfrey and Marianne Williamson. And I had some very high-end, very well-known scientists on there.
Mm-hmm.
And the director of the Waldorf School for Education, and the director of functional medicine was in there, and for the whole medical side. And anyway,
basically experts in their field, which is what should be formulating the true information on topics, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're all experts in their field.
Right.
And then Steve, he puts together a lot of videos, and he's got a website and stuff. And so he took the resource management team that both he and I actually put together, and he put it on his website. He says, this is what it would look like. These people would be the people we would elect to our resource management team. And he puts them up on his website, and you can see them there. His website is Saylor 2020. And it talks about the council. And you go in there and you see the picture of Neil deGrasse Tyson. And then you see his video. And then you see a picture of scientists, and then you can see their video. And Roxanne Meadows is on there. She's on our resource management team as far as the resource-based economy is on there. Anyway.
And that's actually, you said Saylor.
Saylor 2020 is his website.
Okay.
And you can go in there and you can look on his page. It says councils, and you can see the pictures of these people that are our imaginary council. And then you can, and each one of them is connected to their video of their story. And so you look at that thing and you go, wow, yeah, I want those people organizing my country. And we use the word organizing rather than leading,
right,
or managing. So these are the organizers of our country, and it becomes real for you when you're reading the book and you're actually seeing their pictures. And in the book, Oprah Winfrey actually has a video cast of all of these resource management team members, and she interviews them in the book. And you're actually sitting there thinking, like, this is real. These people could actually be organizing my country instead of what we have. I don't want to go there, but anyway.
Please don't.
So it was really fun to just kind of stir up this resource management team just based on nothing but my own research. And so when people, and so getting back to my book, when I read the book out loud, we read it chapter by chapter, and we also put some action with every chapter. And so when we read the chapter about the resource management team, the assignment to the students or to the listeners is to go out and pretend that they are organizing their resource management team. Who would they have as the organizers of their country? The ones that I chose are of interest to me. And so the students are coming back with, 10 or so people that they would elect to be on their resource management team. And they had a blast with it. It really got people out of their box thinking and they started imagining having an actual resource management team made up of all these brilliant people in their fields and giving them the reins to go ahead and organize our country and with great confidence.
I wanted to say, I think you did an excellent job with that. You used real people all throughout that section, and on that topic of the resource management team. I personally think you made excellent picks. I mean, if that ever came to fruition, obviously that's the point. The people kind of decide for the most part, who goes there. But I think you did an excellent job. And I really like that you used real people there. I mean, most of the story is, perhaps imaginary, but again, to what extent, right? I mean, it's only imaginary because it's not actually being done. All it has to do is be done.
Yeah, I'd say yet.
Yeah. But I do. I really do. I mean, when I read that whole part there, when it was introducing the resource management team and, going through the characters or, the individuals, I should say, I think it was vital that you used real people there because it did for me what you just said it did for the others that have read it or you've read to them so far. And it really made it so much more real and possible and practical, because you did such a good job of selecting, I think, the individuals for the roles that you put them in. It's like, I mean, I was like, yeah, why not? Why isn't this happening? Like, this is, it was great. It really did. It was very impactful, the way that you did it. And I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you. And there was real intent there, on making the people real because they could, and when you go to Steve's website, you can see their picture and a snippet of their video. It's like you're investigating your own resource management team and going, it just gets people out of the box of thinking we have to have one commander in chief and, political committees that don't work.
Yeah, I wanted to stress that real quick is, again, for people who don't know more specifically what we're talking about, that's essentially what, the book is about, electing systems for a quote president as opposed to one individual. That's something that I know, obviously dealing with so many people and interacting with so many people in life, that it's amazing and it's quite sad in a lot of ways, but so many people are stuck on what's already created, like you said, and spoon fed essentially to them, that we need one person to do it's unrealistic. It doesn't make sense. And why? What is the point of that? It doesn't make any sense. So for example, let's take, permaculture. Okay. You have people who study this, who do this, who know but they have essentially no say in how the bigger thing is handled, and so you have one person, a president essentially, who has these quote advisors telling them, of course, mixed messages, hidden agendas, all those things. And then they decide for everybody. It makes absolutely no sense. And as a species who supposedly is very intelligent, to think that that's the best we can come up with, when it makes no sense. And essentially what the book is kind of saying and advocating and presenting is that we have a resource management team of, the best in their field, the best and brightest, and anybody can be involved because, if you are into it enough, you have the opportunity to learn because, of course, information would be free. It makes no sense to hinder people to progress and grow and learn and become better for themselves and society. Of course, that's kind of another topic, but so anyway, I just wanted to stress that's what you're saying. The kind of the book sums up is it makes no sense to have one person deciding essentially everything for everybody and almost the world when you have the most powerful nation that has their hand in everybody's pockets, Yeah. So
and it's all about the money.
Yeah, of course. It is all about the money, which is, of course, an old, outdated, irrelevant system now. When you have the technology, the know-how, the resources to do everything, to provide everything. I just want to say this real quick. I don't get on Facebook very much, but I was on there a little while back, and it was an ad, basically a business. And it was talking about how you can flip homes. And so what does it say? The first thing it starts up and it says there are 1 million homes empty in the U.S. So I said, I already know because I've wrote about stuff like this, but just to be accurate, I downsized and I searched how many homeless people are in the U.S. right now, and I know that's roughly around 500 and 10, 20,000 on any given day. So as simple as that sounds, that is so dramatically so there's already way more housing than there is homeless people.
Yeah, like what?
Right. So the thing with that, I mean, again, I know this is kind of maybe getting off a little bit, but is, when you see so many people and so many organizations, they have good intent. That's not what's in question here. But when they say stuff like, oh, we need to solve the housing problem, or, we need to help homeless, or, okay, well, again, what is your end goal? Your end goal supposedly is to get homeless people off of the street. Well, what would you need for that? You obviously mean to get them into some establishment, right? To some buildings, to some shelter. But there's already way over an abundance of that. The only reason that they are not in those structures is because of the money system that says they don't have this piece of paper that says they can go into that building. So that is the problem, not that there's not enough housing. And basically I just wanted to say that because that goes to everything, every main resource in life that people need: food, water, shelter, which is the main things you need to survive. Even if you don't have a TV, I mean, granted, that could be done too, but I'm just saying for people to survive and thrive and stuff like that, those are the main elements we need. Everybody knows that, but they're already in abundance. So until we as a whole start understanding that, learning, transitioning, basically to what me and you were saying, and people like us, what we're pushing and advocating for is to understand that and realize the answers that most people say they're looking for or, trying to help accomplish, they're already here. They've already been given to us and presented to us. You just have to understand and shift your way of thinking. If you think within the box, you're never going to get there, because within the box is all these imaginary systems and institutions that we've created that are old, irrelevant, outdated, and they just don't work.
Exactly. you brought up a couple things that triggered some thoughts about the book again. One of the things you mentioned was the people on the councils. Getting back to that, they're talking about the people on the council, and you were talking about the main council is made up of professionals in their field, and but in addition to that, the whole nation starts to run on councils, local councils, about how we can fit the needs of our local people. And so the story is about a family, and there's also there's a lot of kids in the book, and I did that on purpose too, because it starts off with a kid that's just completely bored with the education system, and he's not learning anything. And then as the story evolves, he actually ends up being on some of these councils, and he's on the same council with people who are professional. He's on the same council with engineers or people who build robotics or people who know permaculture. And so as part of your citizenship of our new world, everyone volunteers a few hours a week to be on a council that has something to do with serving the people in their community. And so the children have gone from being, in classrooms, learning how to just sit in classrooms the same way they'd sit in a corporation when they're older. But the kids in the book actually get out into the community and start joining councils of things that have to do with building a better neighborhood, building a better community. And so some of the scientific councils have children on them. And the children were studying science in school. And so it's multi-generational. The councils are made up of multi-generational people. And of course, the people who are, PhDs in science, they have a 16-year-old in their class who's who's eager to learn science. And at one point, the scientist was interviewed by Oprah and said, well, how does it feel to have, kids on your council? And they were saying, well, it's really great because the way that we consult with the sociocratic process where everyone has a voice. And this is the kids have a lot of really good ideas when it comes around to them using their voice. And so anyway, the whole education system changes in the book to being productive out in your community, learning skills, feed people, learning skills to build homes for people. And one of the other things I loved about the imaginary part of the book is that we repurposed the military and the police. Right. And instead of the military being out to defend, the military comes to the neighborhoods and they help build housing for the homeless, and the homeless start helping houses for the homeless, and so each neighborhood has got a council of military people. They're to only be in service, to build buildings and to take care of the elders and to tear down old mobile homes and start building homes that are sustainable through hurricanes and building medical centers. And so all of these masses of people that are in the military and the police forces are now in the community building things the community can use. And I thought that was a pretty brilliant part of the book. And that leads into another part that I really liked a lot. And this one actually surprised me. Like I said, I was very inspired when I was writing the book. And I honestly, in my mind and my ego, I didn't know how a lot of the things were going to end up. I was just going with the flow, and the ending ended up being a surprise to me. But one of my favorite chapters is the book called Busting the Millionaires, the Billionaires.
Right.
And I might have that wrong, but I'm pretty excited right now. Anyway. So the point is that these billionaires get together and they have a reality check talk. And the chapter starts off with this billionaire having a nightmare where he goes to cash in some of his money, and the clerk says, "I'm sorry, sir, your money is of no value here anymore." So in the book, the people stop valuing money and they start valuing people. And these billionaires sit down and they get the reality check that they have gotten rich over many generations of our whole country being built on a debt society, and that so many people owe them debt, and that's how they end up getting rich. And so in the book, the president comes in and he erases all debt all local debt, all personal debt, all national debt. There's no more debt. And so the billionaires get a wake-up call. They become conscious in the book that, wait a minute, people are no longer buying the money thing. And since no one is in debt anymore, no one's going to pay us anymore. And our money is not going to be valuable anymore.
Right.
And so there's this moment in the book where these billionaires are just sitting there in dead silence, all of them internalizing what it's going to be like with their money having no value. And it's a really incredible turning point in the book. I love that part. And it really just came jumping through me. And so instead of, they just came to the moment when they said, we have to stop making money. We have to stop using people to make us rich because the game's over.
Right.
People are not going to be paying us anymore. And so they decide to support the things that's going to create the changes. So they start supporting Steve Saylor and his campaign, and they said, well, we can't give him any money because he's in the money-free party and he's being elected by using no money, but we can give him advertising. So these billionaires start making it really known to the world or to the nation about Steve Saylor, and that's one of the ways he gets in. So it was really kind of cool.
Yes, it was very cool. I like that part a lot too, and I really did. It was impactful, and I'm a visionary, and I dream, of course, and stuff. And I have thought that if when whatever that point comes, how that would be, and I think you thought it out and wrote it beautifully, and it was inspiring to read that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was another part in there about in relation to the money. One of the rich guys says, well, how do you think you're going to overcome big oil? They don't like people getting things through the patent office that have to do with alternative energy because they want their fingers in how to sell cars and sell tires and sell insurance and sell maintenance and all that stuff. And they're all getting rich on that. Mm-hmm. And in the book, he says, well, Steve Saylor, our president, he just closed the patent office. And so people were able to come in there. All the resources were available to everyone. All the technology was available to everyone. And all the people power was available to everyone. And the people could just invent ways that to transport people without needing money.
Right.
Without needing oil. So all of a sudden there's cars that are already lots of designs out there that are alternative, but the big oil doesn't let them pass the patent office. So in the book, you talk about, well, what it would be like if all the resources were available for people and they could invent whatever they needed in order to get around with free energy and no oil and, solar cars or, whatever. And so it was kind of an exciting moment when they just closed the patent office and said, everything's available to everyone.
That actually is a big one. And we're going to conclude this episode on that note. I think that's a good place to stop. Next week on part 2, we'll pick up right where we left off, talking about patents. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope you got something out of it. That's what this is all about for me, trying to inform, educate, and inspire people. The sooner people realize the veil of lies we've bought into and that we already possess all the knowledge, resources, and technology we need for sustainability and abundance for everyone, the sooner the transition can start. Please feel free to email, follow, share, comment, like, subscribe. I welcome any and all feedback or support. And I hope you'll tune in next time for another episode of the All Real Show. We are one.